welcome back to the Investment Cafe. Today we have an exciting new guest for you who will be joining us and bringing his perspective on property investing. Please welcome Abhishek. Abhishek went to a top business school, studied business, and then after that he's had over 10 years of working in top tech companies, running mid to senior level business development roles. He has been investing in stocks quite actively for more than 5 years now, and typically he uses the value investing long-term strategy, as well as sometimes he dips in and out of short-term strategies for investment. He has been looking to diversify out of stocks and into the property sector. And he's been in the journey looking for good opportunities to invest in London over the last 6 months. So Abhishek, how's your journey been so far?
First of all, thank you for having me on board, and I'm excited to share my experience. So the journey's been quite interesting. I mean, I actually bought my own flat about just over a year ago, and since then, having been through that journey, I thought, you know, if I had savings and if I was to look at from a long-term perspective, I think I should look at property as well, you know, since it was fresh in my mind. So I started looking out for property over the last 6 months, as you mentioned. I did initially look at places outside London, but over especially the last 3 to 4 months, I'm focusing only on opportunities in London, primarily because I think from an operational perspective, if I was to buy a property and then rent it out, it would be a lot easier just to get, you know, things done from a repairs or improvements perspective, and just to be a little bit more hands-on, especially since it would be my first buy-to-let property. So yeah, it's been quite interesting.
Interesting. And how's your experience been with the sector? You know, how are you finding what is your process to find deals, to handpick deals?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is as a lot of investors will tell you, is its location. So what I do is I try to find out properties in specific areas and locations which fit my affordability category or criteria rather. And primarily I look at properties in zone 3 onwards, which have a decent connectivity into London, because frankly speaking, below zone 3, it's not, I can't afford it. So that's the first bit. And secondly, it's so I try to find out properties which have good transport links, and then also try to analyze what has been the capital appreciation of property in the neighboring let's say streets, or even in the same street, just to ensure that, you know, beyond rental yield, what can I get from this property if I sold it in, let's say, 4 to 5 years. So that's essentially those are the 2 bits of criteria, and then I go into, of course, you know, focusing on an ROI, trying to do my calculations, and in case I don't have enough information about these properties, and I should say that I mostly use Rightmove and Zoopla to, you know, find out which properties, and sometimes actually Gumtree as well. So it's mostly been Rightmove and Zoopla, and I use my filters quite carefully, yeah, just take it from there. And sometimes if there are questions, I reach out to the agent, ask them questions, and I try not to do a lot of viewings unless absolutely needed. I think in the early days, I was doing a lot of viewings, but I quickly realized that I could easily have gotten to the same conclusion by asking some of these questions. So it's been a little bit of trial by fire. Haven't lost much, but just saying like this, I think these are important things, especially from a time perspective. And so now I focus on very, very specific properties which fit all my criteria. Otherwise, I don't go ahead. And typically they tend to fall under, you know, like I mentioned, capital appreciation and decent yield. And by decent, I mean yield, like net yield, including all costs above, let's say 5%. Yeah.
Shek, you mentioned that you use filters as a tool. I assume that's search filters on Zoopla and
Yeah.
other websites. What other tools do you use, or what other materials that you use to help you come to your decision?
Yeah, so so Rightmove and Zoopla, as you mentioned, and I use a lot of filters in there, as in some keywords. For example, if you wanted to add a keyword like repossessed property or low lease term or things like that, that often gives you properties which correspond to those searches, because it's pretty easy to like put in a little bit of money into a property which has a low lease term and really increase the capital appreciation. Just giving you one example. So that's one example. The other tools that I use to guide my thinking is I follow a lot of YouTube vloggers who are in the property or prop tech space, who've done this again and again, and so they know all the pitfalls, and also they follow what the some of the trends that are happening in the market. So, for example, in regulatory trends and so on, and just to give you one example, I was initially considering buying property via my own, let's say, my own account. But now I'm trying to do it via a special purpose vehicle, because it's a lot easier to expense a number of different costs which are not available to. I'm struggling for the name of the word, but basically if you did it yourself. Yeah.
So, Shek, is there any major frustrations that you have been facing in this 6 months?
Yeah, sure. I don't know how much time you have for that, but I think some of the main frustrations are is the operational challenge of actually going and viewing these properties and never actually knowing what are some of the jack in the boxes, the hidden bits and pieces to this property. Because often, one is, once you go to a property, of course, you've got like the 5, 10, 15 minutes to view the property, take a few videos, photographs, and just look through a few things, look under the hood. But often when you get into the process with your solicitor and with all the searches that take, you discover a whole bunch of new things. And agents are not always forthcoming with these points. And so I wish some of this information was a little bit more readily available. So yeah, that would really help speed up the process. Yeah.
How is it, Sheikh? I'm just interested to know, how has your experience been in so far, looking for buying property or investing in property versus your stock investment experience?
Sure. I think that they're two very different investment classes, as you obviously know. So from a stock perspective, it's very easy to dip in and dip out. You can just literally buy a stock at any company for, and there's something based on your availability, affordability. You can buy it at any company using any of the trading platforms, and you can easily, or you can also sell it when you realize that the stock is going downhill. So from a stock perspective, it's very easy, but the flip side is that you don't often have a lot of control when it comes to knowing exactly what's happening inside, what is happening to the day-to-day, let's say, running of the business, because all you get is a quarterly report. You sometimes hear, some, partnerships or some deals or some additional bits and pieces of information that might give you some insight, but you often don't know what is actually happening. You can't peer under the hood. So that's the first bit. I think on the property side, though, it's quite different. It's almost the opposite challenge. So it's very difficult to dip in and dip out, because you've got to spend a lot of time, as I mentioned. So it's like I said, even 6 months down, I still haven't found the right kind of property. So sometimes that can be a huge frustration. And it's basically an operational challenge, like going to the property, figuring out all of these additional bits and pieces, because to be honest, you can't trust the agent and the seller's information all the time, because they are not incentivized to help you in some ways, right? But on the good side, is that when you buy a property, you're actually, it's your business, so you are a lot more in control of it. and I think it could be a lot more rewarding over the long term if you get the hang of it, of course.
Cool. Final question. Would there be any, if you've identified any barriers to enter the real estate investing world, what could those barriers be? And if they were, just to think about it as, if they were removed, that you would basically just be very comfortable investing in real estate?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the first one is really the education bit, as in really breaking down what property investing really means from a holistic perspective, and also giving a comparison of what property investment would mean compared to, let's say, another different asset class, like I mentioned. So that would be the first one. And the second one is actually helping out on the operational side. If there was someone who could present me a curated list of properties that would fit my criteria, and also go and do the viewings, or even clear out some of these questions right off the bat, so that I would ultimately focus on the last few really that's the cream of the crop kind of property. And I think then that would really speed up things, because otherwise it is a really manual procedure, regardless of how many tools you use. So that doesn't help. I think it would really help if these bits were operationalized, or there was some way to overcome these hurdles.
Sheikh, thank you very much for your time and your insight. It's very helpful for all these new entrants to the market. So for everyone else, we'll see you next week. Bye.
All right, take care. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.